Okay, so we'll be looking at the marine biology lesson plan first. If we look at our blue planet, about 71% of our planet is covered in water, and about 97% of that water we find in our oceans and seas. This is what we call our marine environment. And obviously there's a whole world out there for us to explore. And there's a lot of people that work in this environment. For instance, marine biologists that study the environment underwater and the ecosystems that we find there. And an ecosystem is all the plants, all the animals, the weather, the temperature, everything together that works together in harmony in this environment. That's what we call a marine ecosystem. It's a big community working together. When we look at ecosystems, within these ecosystems there's lots of different food chains of animals and plants that rely on each other for food. And in each food chain, at the bottom of the food chain, we find our producers. Our producers are our plants that make their own food in the process of photosynthesis. And then we have our consumers, which are animals that feed on the plants. Within the consumers, we can also have animals that feed on other animals. So we have our carnivores, animals feeding on plants are herbivores, and some animals eat both plants and animals, so that's our omnivores. And then at the top of the chain, we can find our decomposers, which are our bacteria and fungi that break down all the dead plant and animal materials. And so the food chain is kind of, all the materials are recycled and plants can use these nutrients again. So let's look at the first activity. Okay, so the first activity in the marine biology lesson plan, we'll be looking at different food chains. And there's two food chains that you get with the teaching resources. The first one is just for animals. And you can ask pupils to put them in the right order, which would be like this. So what we have at the bottom of the chain, we have our algae, which are plants that produce their own food. Then we have the sturgeon fish, the little fish that eats the algae. We have the Napoleon wrasse that eats the little fish, and we have the dolphin that eats the Napoleon wrasse. The next food chain is a little bit larger. What we have here is we get, again, at the bottom of the food chain, we always find our producers. So planktons are little plants that live in the water. So this is our producer at the bottom of the food chain. Then the jellyfish eat the plankton, the butterfly fish eat the jellyfish, turtle eats the butterfly fish, shark eats the turtle. And at the top of the chain, we have our bacteria, which are decomposers that break down any dead plant and animal material and recycle the nutrients back where plants can use it. So once pupils have looked at these food chains and put them in order, have a discussion about what would happen if we do any work underwater that would interfere with these food chains. So, for instance, if we did some work underwater that impacted on the butterfly fish and killed off the butterfly fish, what would happen to the other animals in the food chain? So if we took out the butterfly fish, what would happen? First of all, the jellyfish wouldn't have any predators anymore, so the jellyfish, their numbers would start increasing massively. On the other side, the turtle, it would lose its food, so the turtles would start dying out. If the turtles died out, the sharks would also have less food and might die out. So by taking one animal out of the food chain, we can affect the whole food chain, and eventually the whole food chain would collapse. So as you can see, just if we do work underwater that impacts one of these species, we're affecting the whole food chain. So when companies want to do work underwater, they always need to do an environmental impact essay. So this is where marine biologists come in and study the animals underwater, the ecosystems, and how they all interact, and they can give advice on when work can be carried out, and maybe precautions that need to be taken to ensure that all the animals are there's least disturbance to all the animals. So that is the activities in the marine biology lesson plan. As I said before, you can find all the resources on the Subsea channel website, and I'll see you again for a different topic.